So my first task this evening is I'm going to introduce our keynote. I've got a couple of things I'm going to say after our keynote as well. But first of all, I just wanted to say what a tremendous couple of days I have had, and I'll speak a bit more about that in a short while. I attempted to mention this in our in the welcome pack, in the schedule, that one of the main reasons that it was so important to us to really get our keynote right was that I'm aware that since taking on the reins, that me personally and my stance and my position sometimes tends to polarize opinion. And it was really important to us to have somebody that could kind of straddle numerous camps and have the same sense of appeal and bring people together. And one of the things that I've always respected massively in the last decade that I've known Anthony and been friends with him is the way that he manages to do that. To have the love of magicians and street guys, and as well as those of us that love evidence-based and so on, and be able to stay friends with everybody. And he does this marvellously well. He's one of the most likable people I've ever encountered, and manages to do it with such panache and so on. Typically I make jokes every year that I know no one else who can make hats look as cool as he does. Anyway, I kind of felt rather humbled with my own ability to introduce him. So I asked somebody else to do his introduction and his tribute before I bring him on. So I'm just going to read the exact words that I was given. Hello, you magnificent human beings and fabulous hypnotists. My name is Tim Cummins. I'm your humble verbal surgeon. I'd like to pay tribute today to my best friend and extraordinary human being, Anthony Jacquin. I first heard about Anthony when I was in New York City. I'd done some promos for Igor Ledachovsky, and he invited me to come to his seminar in New York City. After the 3-day conference, I asked Igor who I should study with next. He said in no uncertain terms that the person I should go see was Anthony Jacquin. He's doing the most creative work in hypnosis today. Later that week, I bought a copy of his book, Reality is Plastic. As well as the DVD set of Trilby, I can truly say that this book and DVD set changed my life. For me, the definition of a genius is someone who can make complicated things simple. In this case, I believe that Anthony is the Da Vinci of hypnosis. His book, Reality is Plastic, set out a very simple method to lead people to experience hypnosis at a profound level. His step-by-step methodology has helped people worldwide to learn how to hypnotize in simple and powerful ways. I can remember studying with him in London at the Hoxton Hotel. I soaked up the trainings like a sponge, and I had my first experience of hypnotizing someone in front of the class so that he could no longer remember his name. But perhaps the most powerful experience I've had in hypnosis was when I first became invisible. Tim Cummins became invisible. I was at the head hacker class in New York City, and I told Lewis, at the count of 3, you will open your eyes and you will not be able to see me. 1, 2, 3, eyes open. The look of astonishment on his face as he opened his eyes and could not see me was apparent, because the can of Diet Coke I was holding appeared to be floating in the air. At that moment, I realized that hypnosis was a superpower and that reality is plastic, and that everything in our minds can be hacked. And I realized at a deep level that Anthony Jacquin is someone very special. I've had the fortune of spending weeks in the Jacquin household. Anthony is a great dad, a loving father, and a terrific husband. I think it's important to study with people who are themselves happy and well-adjusted, and Anthony is one of those people. Anthony is one of the most well-read people I've ever met. He truly knows more about hypnosis than anyone I know. The knowledge makes him a terrific teacher and the most interesting friend that I have. He's one of the most loved teachers of hypnosis in the world. He goes out of his way to learn the cultures of the countries he visits. He's one of the few Englishmen I've met that has actually studied another language. He knows. He has spent hundreds of hours studying Portuguese so he can better relate to his friends in Brazil. And for the Brasileiros in the audience, they can agree that his extra effort has really paid off. Recently, he was in India leading courses with his dad, Freddie. Not only was he teaching, he was also performing. I was amazed to see billboards around the city in India with his face on it that said, "The world's best hypnotist." I was delighted with those billboards, but not surprised because he truly is the best. Anthony's one of the really good people in the world. I'm very proud of him and what he has accomplished. As he gives the keynote speech in a moment, let him open your mind and fill you with knowledge and joy and happiness as he has with mine on so many occasions. Peace and love, and may you have the best evening ever. So without further ado, I give you Anthony Jacquin.
Thank you. Wow. Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. If you're inside this building, looking forward to the rest of the night, make some noise now. It's much easier that way, much easier. Such a warm welcome. I don't even get welcomed like that when I come back from Brazil after 2 weeks and get home, so that is good. I'm going to settle down. It might take a few minutes. I must say this new, rather austere dress code that you've imposed upon us this year is working. Everyone is looking awesome tonight, which is good. My first gala dinner, I wore a t-shirt, and Adam has never let me live that one down, so it's all good. And thank you, Adam, for that introduction. It's normally over the top when you do it, but Tim A. Cummins, I'm going to struggle to live up to that. We may have already peaked, but I'm going to do my best. And I should just say that when you asked me to do this, and it was essentially last year, my initial response was, no, I'm not going to do that. So I feel like I should explain my initial lack of enthusiasm for what is obviously something of, an honour. It's not as being negative. It's just that 2 years ago, and this involves Tim too, I was about to go to India to teach hypnosis, and my good friend, Tim A. Cummins, the verbal surgeon, said to me, when you go to the subcontinent, you need to make a resolution to say yes to everything. I was like, yes to everything? He said, yes to everything. He said, you Brits are too polite. Your host is trying to take you places, show you things, give you stuff, feed you things, and you're like, you don't want to make any trouble. They want to show you their culture, they want to celebrate and share this with you, so say yes to everything. So this became my mantra for the trip, my first response to every single thing I was offered, and it worked. I had one of the best trips ever. I went to places I'd never seen before, I'll never see again. I ate things I've never tasted before. I certainly met a lot of people I wouldn't have otherwise have met. It was so good that I decided to continue this pursuit when I got back to the UK. But then it was more like, do you want a pizza? All right then, should we have another pint? Should we go for a curry? And I basically put on about 10 kilos. So I was having a sort of therapy stroke coaching session with a student of mine, because I like to engage and experience this stuff. And in a moment of complete clarity, I realised a year ago I was going to be the man that says, no, I'm just going to say no. So it wasn't like no, it's far too firm. I need a bit of room for my arm to be twisted. And I just made this commitment when Adam said, do you want to do the keynote next year? I was like, no. He persisted, and I said, no. I like to listen rather than lecture. I like to experience rather than expound. But Adam went back to the books, got out his extremely well-thumbed copy of The Science of Influence by Cialdini, and got his Cialdini on and buttered me up, and here we go, I capitulated. So thank you, Adam, for your encouragement. Thank you for your efforts in the last decade. We won't talk about that book you wrote just over 10 years ago, but in the last decade, the efforts you've made to encourage us all, whether we're practitioners, trainers, or just curious, to raise our game, is having an impact. It's having an impact way beyond your students. It's having an impact on the health of the field itself. And I appreciate at times it feels like a mission impossible. You are literally peeing in the wind at times, but keep doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is important and it's appreciated by everyone here, even if it's challenging at times. So please, let's give it up for Adam. Not only is your work excellent, you've shown us it's possible to reach such dizzy heights of success as a hypnotist that you can even have your own catchphrase. Yeah, quite when hello would be a good choice, I don't know, but it inspires us all. Thanks must also go out to UKHC's founding father. It's like a humble visionary, almost reluctant creator, but he's an all-round community cohesive, and that is Mr. Nick Ebden, sitting over here. Right? And he's been around the last 2 days. If it's your first year here, you may not have seen him or know who he is, but this is a man who had a vision. This is a man who understands the power and the potential in creating a very small, dedicated team and then delegating hard until that shit gets done. Nick, this is a lesson in dreaming big. You've created something that's probably going to outlive us. This thing has legs, it's just going to run and run. You've done an excellent job. What you've done is important. So thank you, thank you. I think hypnosis is important. I think what we're doing here is important. I know it's a lot of fun, but I think it's actually important. And it's important because it allows all of us to continue to furnish ourselves with good information so we can represent the industry and we can serve our clients in the best way possible. We're mostly free of the esoteric fog that has clouded and held back the widespread acceptance of hypnosis. Mostly. We have an abundance of information at our fingertips, and in this business, good information eases suffering, it increases happiness. If we choose to, we can study the work of every single giant of hypnosis whose shoulders we're standing on. If we choose to, we can dig into an abundance of scientific literature that shows clearly there is a place for hypnosis in mainstream and complementary healthcare. It has a place almost everywhere because we can adapt this knowledge to any industry or pursuit that we choose. Just a wide variety of areas covered in lectures this weekend, a kind of testament to that. Technology is enabling us all to do our work remotely. Yeah, this allows all of us to turn our local practice into a global practice overnight. If you haven't done that yet, you should. It's easy, it's painless. Just get hold of Zoom, decent laptop. Healing at a distance is no longer the preserve of deluded mesmerists. We can all do this right now. The opportunity to earn a reliable living as a hypnotist has never been better than it is now. I truly believe there's never been a better time to be involved than now. It's exciting. Yeah? But just like any industry where there's a sudden abundance of information, it's inevitable that there's going to be a lot of noise as well. Yeah? What my teenage children would call a bunch of wass. Yeah? And it's important that we learn to discriminate the good from the bad, the wheat from the chaff, the gas from the wass. And if we stay attentive and if we engage our imagined critical faculty and we focus on the most promising lines of inquiry, then we can sort of pluck diamonds from this information dunghill. Yeah? And an event like this is going to help with that. Right here, right now, we can see some of the most effective hypnotherapists around. We can meet some of the most in-demand hypnotists and trainers of hypnotism in the world, and we can question them. We can do it tonight. We can share ideas with them and our peers. We can compare, we can contrast our influences, and we can have a better chance of identifying the good stuff so that we can help more people. And let's face it, there is a lot of people who need our help in this world, yeah? Once you know what hypnosis is capable of, and you've seen some of it this weekend, it's impossible to fail to notice there is a ton of unnecessary suffering out there. Yeah, whether it is chronic physical or emotional pain, whether it's unbridled anxiety or some killer habit, we can help, we can serve. And as my dad, Jacquin, often says, it is our duty to do so. Doing anything less is doing people a disservice. There are people in this room with issues we could solve in our families and our friends, our communities, and amongst our potential clients. And our remedy is made of words. It's injected via people's ears, and it needs to be made more accessible, more readily available. Not just so doctors and dentists and nurses get on board, but so every single person who's in a position to care, influence or assist somebody else in their pursuit of personal happiness can do so. We need to share the knowledge of this verbal remedy. Now, an event like this also fulfills a basic need that we all have to be part of something bigger than ourselves. This is a basic human need, and hypnosis can be a bit of a lonely business. You were probably a bit strange before you got into hypnosis, you know. Now you're hypnotizing people. You can end up isolated. So I know there are some who are like the lone wolf approach to learning, but for most of us, having a community like this is a real benefit. If you're new to this, in the early stages, this is an opportunity to kind of nurture and grow your understanding. For those that are vastly experienced, a community can provide checks and balances so we don't get too carried away with our latest theory of how the mind works, how the brain works, how people work. Whether you're a novice or you're experienced, the fact is we all want to be validated. We all want to feel that we're competent. And I'd hope we all want to get better and serve our clients more effectively. And an event like this can help by giving us a chance to look beyond our own training and consider other people's points of view. Tomorrow night, when we leave here, a rather stark evaluation can be made by each of us, and that is essentially, what did I learn? What will I take away from this event? How will I better serve my clients on Monday? Now, I know it's natural when you've invested in a particular school's training and theory to get a little tribal, especially when you see it work in class, even more so when you go home, test it out, and you get some positive results. We very quickly learn the language of our tribe, and we can often be a bit too quick to reject the theory and the language of others. We find ourselves making efforts to shore up our camp simply because we've set up a camp. It's natural, but it's a mistake. Yeah? Tribalism does have a place, but it shouldn't be allowed to conquer, because it will inhibit your growth. You will miss other diamonds, other jewels, if you do that. There are some here tonight who think that the unconscious mind is all-knowing, all-wise, always on. There are other people who wince at even the mention of such an unscientific notion, as that great writer of hypnotic fiction, George Estabrooks, put it. Some in here think trance is a necessity, others think it's a distraction. Some hold up Milton Erickson as some kind of wizard, and others like he's just wizened. Yeah. And you laugh at that. I thought that would be outrageous to say that, but there you go, you fucking laugh. Part of his genius, in my opinion, is he didn't need to outline exactly how this works. He allowed his results to speak. He allowed the work to be intuitive, dare I say it, artful. I've had conversations this weekend with some people saying they're uncomfortable with the notion of an inner mind. Yeah, just like a generation before them got uncomfortable with the notion of an inner child, and a generation before that got uncomfortable with the notion of an inner demon. Even the notion of realizing true happiness is no longer bang on trend. Now, it gives each of us, each generation gets a comfort from taking refuge in thinking we're nearly there. Our description of the truth of human experience is a good one. It's accurate, it's got longevity. Like our theory is an almost finished masterpiece. Yeah, we are so quick to forget the overwhelming suggestion of the history of hypnosis. Is it possible that each of us have been hypnotized by the concept we have of hypnosis? Hypnotized by what it looks like, hypnotized by what we make it look like. You know, to be an effective practitioner, it's not obligatory to question the nature of what it is we purport to be doing. But if you hear that call to go deeper, then you will find a dive into hypnosis is a dive into human experience. It's a dive into life itself. And the deeper you dive, the thinner the materials that this seemed to be made of get. Pillars of hypnosis that I've entirely believed in fall over when you give them even a tiny cursory kicking. Elements of hypnosis that seem to have substance for me have dissolved in the light of this examination. They slip through our fingers. And when that's happening, the temptation is to try and cling on, to hold on to them. But it is absolutely futile, I'm telling you. My suggestion is you let go of the sides, you sink, you float downstream, and you go deeper. And accept that learning is a destructive process at times that has absolutely nothing to do with getting better or smarter. Learning is just as often a crumbling away of untruth, and occasionally it's the complete eradication of everything that you imagine to be true. The tearing down of your most cherished beliefs. It can mean saying goodbye to your most quoted factoids. You know, upon examination, it turned out that Franz Anton Mesmer did not find influence in the invisible fluid running through the universe. James Braid, I'm afraid, did not find it in the fixation of the eye or the mind. Hippolyte Bernheim, one of my favourites, told us suggestion is everything. Yet his chief student and the guy that translated his body of work, Sigmund Freud, pointed out that Bernheim didn't even bother to define suggestion in his 400-page book. No one has ever found Dave Ellman's critical faculty. Milton Erickson didn't find it in the unconscious mind. Professor Horton did not find hypnosis in the enlarged rostrum. And I dare say we are not going to find it in the brainwaves. We're not going to find it because it's not there. There you go, I said it. It's not there. Now, so all together or not at all, you know what I'm saying? Here we go. We should perhaps make a note that 2019 is the year that the world's leading expert in self-hypnosis, our very own Adam Eason, went on record and decided he'd prefer to stop calling self-hypnosis, preferring the term phenomenological control. I was about to say, hello, it's not there. But after listening to Professor Zoltan Dean speak today, I think maybe it's there. Maybe it's there. That was an incredible speech or lecture by Zoltan. My view is the reason we can't find it anywhere is because it's everywhere. Hypnosis is life. Suggestion is indeed everything. It's inescapable when you examine it. Expectation and suggestion are built into every single experience that we have. Experience that is experienced by an aware subject that is always responding, a subject that is always hypnotized, a subject that's always in, or rather always on. Our personal reality really is plastic. All talk of hypnosis is actually talk of our personal reality. All talk of the hypnotee is actually talk of self-hypnosis. Self-harm is self-hypnosis. Self-healing is self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis is waking up to the fact that your personal reality is a fiction in a permanent state of flux with the readiness potential to begin changing now. And the good news, because there is some good news, is it's always on. It is listening right here. It is responding. I'm starting to sound like Fatboy Slim. It is responding right now. Part of you is sitting up as it hears this. It's waiting for you to give it its next instruction, its next suggestion. It's responding to your expectations. It's responding to your suggestions. It's responding to your automatic imaginings. Think about it. What is it in your life right now that you could laugh or smile about and be so much better off before I'm even finished with this talk? I don't know. But part of you does know. Hypnosis is a call and a response. And we just need to put out the call. Recognize something is said. Somewhere it's heard. You just need to put out the call and patiently wait for the response. To change the way you think and feel and respond, you just need to begin right here. Right now. So, what does it mean that we can suggest away chronic pain, often in minutes? What does it actually mean that we can use words to alleviate allergies? At least Jurgen can teach us how to do that. What is implied by the fact that imagination is enough to alleviate IBS? You know, these kinds of changes are becoming commonplace. These kinds of changes should encourage us to question the nature of our personal reality. And in that inquiry, to go deeper than the problem, the symptom, and the solution, and to ask instead, what is the nature of the one to whom these problems, symptoms, and solutions are appearing? As I said in my lecture at the weekend, curiously, what's missing from every single book and every single article about self-hypnosis is any interest in the first part of that equation. Our sense of self. Whatever you call it, I, consciousness, it's just overlooked as if the self is so self-evident we don't need to even consider it. And I would argue it's not just worthwhile, it is essential if we're to push things forward. Otherwise, we risk repeating the mistakes of people who came before us who were vilified for just treating symptoms. And a generation of hypnotists now are obsessed with chasing down causes. Our efforts to satisfy the sense of lack and agitation and disconnection our clients have will carry on looking like a pseudo-clinical game of whack-a-mole unless we encourage our clients to self-remember. And the quickest way to do this is just sit with the question, who am I? See what comes up and cast away anything that doesn't stick to this blade of inquiry. I assure you this is not just a philosophical question. This is not just a spiritual question. This is the only question. This is the question of our times as far as I'm concerned. And it's a question that all of us are going to face when every single thing that you imagine yourself to be right now starts to fail. Things are going to fall apart. And at some point, you're going to be staring this question in the face. We may as well ask it now. Now, I appreciate taking refuge in what you can change is a sweet thing to do, but it's an unreliable basis for fulfillment. Becoming familiar with what's always present and unchanging in your experience is a reliable basis for fulfillment. So again, I'll ask you right here, right now, Can you find anything in your experience that's unchanging? It's fine not to have an answer to these kind of questions. Is it possible for you to be happy before anything else happens? Is it possible, without your circumstances changing, to discover a wellspring of happiness inside of you? I think it can, but only if we pop out of the trance that we are currently so at home in. Yeah? Selfless well-being is there to be experienced. Deep down, we all know it. We have a hunch that things can be better. Even in our most troubled situation, our most difficult moment, we have a hunch that it can be better. The happiness is there. We can be more connected. We can feel more at peace. It calls out to us. It pulls us forward. And we need to respond. So where do we go from here? Clearly, there are many ideas about hypnosis that should rightly be condemned by anyone with the intelligence to understand them as such. It's fair game to go after these ideas. But rarely do we need to attack the individual who holds them. We can just set them a place at the children's table. Be done with it. Of course, we should heed the call of those who attempt to make us aware of our own outdated facts, our personal, educational, and intuitive bias, but not at the expense of being intuitive. You know, intuitive thinking absolutely has a place in this work. Daniel Kahneman, the author of Thinking Fast and Slow, put it very succinctly. He said, bias may be the origin of most of what we do wrong, but it's also the origin of most of what we do right, which is most of what we do. Our thoughts and actions are routinely guided by our bias, and they're generally on the mark. It's utter foolishness to write off the experience of people who are vastly experienced because they're not on the same theoretical page as us. We are a product of our time. If this was like an exponential curve of human understanding, we're probably still on the bit that looks pretty flat. Our theoretical page is going to yellow with antiquity, just like everybody else's. I've met a few people here this weekend who are involved in the applied physical sciences like physiotherapy. If you have an interest in that, you'll understand that to just consider body mechanics when dealing with chronic pain and mobility issues these days is a severely limited approach. They have had to accept the bio-psycho-social model. We must do the same. We need to stop thinking of ourselves as just technicians of the psychological, because the evidence mounting up is becoming apparent that that viewpoint is extremely limited. We need to consider the bio-social and psychological creation of our personal reality. From psychology, we need to make ourselves aware of the growing body of research about how beliefs and expectations about common experiences fundamentally alter the impact of those experiences. From sociology, we should review the social influence, the role of social influence in constructing the quality and the impact of therapeutic products and experiences, just as we should anything else. And from medicine, we should do our best to familiarize ourselves with the neurological and the physiological underpinnings of the placebo effect of expectation, social context, and see how these things are having a real impact, making physiological changes to the body. This convention, if anything, is a lesson in diversity, but only if we explore beyond those lectures that sing to our particular choir. We've got one more day of this, and I'd suggest you don't just listen for agreement, you listen for insight. Go to some of the things that don't immediately attract you and find out what is there to be discovered. We don't need more division and puffed up attitudes and self-righteousness. It polarizes us, it inhibits our growth. We need more love and wisdom and compassion towards each other. This is a call to action, to assist those in our community who are trying to assist people in theirs. Let's dedicate ourselves to being more than the hypnotist. Instead, be hypnosis itself. Be bold. Engage in self-hypnosis every single day. Be curious. Test your assertions in the laboratory of your own life. Be hypnosis. Reveal your will to act and shine a light on the possibility of a better future for every single person you come into contact with. You know stuff they don't. You operate in a field in which technology's barely entered yet. But it is on your tail, by the way. It is threatening your redundancy. That was what this speech was going to be about. But we've got a couple of years. You belong to an age of reality exploration. You should be devoted to that exploration. Not because you need certainty, but because you want to be in service to deeper levels of human flourishing. After a weekend like this, I implore you to ask yourself, what is it that you will be doing different on Monday? Thank you. I'm finished. Well, I'm not finished, but there we go. That's the end of that. You can clap now. That would be good. Wow. Now let's just try something, because good old Milton Erickson did get a mention there. Some of you know who he is, some of you don't, some of you care for him, some of you don't. But I thought tonight we'd try a little experiment and we'll just see what happens. It's just going to take a few minutes of your time. I remember my dad many years ago when he was still growing as a hypnotherapist, getting to a point not quite knowing what to do for a client, and it's not like he's a big believer in the spirits or anything, but he kind of called upon the spirit of Erickson. Give me some inspiration, and he got that inspiration. So we're going to do the same thing tonight. I want you all to put up your right hand. Right up so I can see it. Good. And I want you to say out loud, I'm willing to have this experience. I always love it when people say that when they don't know what the experience is they're about to have. So I'd like you to think about it, but I would like you to say it again and mean it this time. I'm willing to have this experience. Now I want you to keep your arm in the air. If it needs supporting, you can support it, but just let your wrist relax for me. So it's just kind of hanging there. Look at that, it looks like a little swan. Yeah? I want you to turn and look at your own hand. Do not look at me. Do not look at anybody else's hand. Look at your hand like you've never looked at it before. I want you to look at the lines on your hand. Look at the lines between these lines. Milton Erickson, Milton H. Erickson, if you're amongst us, move their hand. Move their hand. It may be a finger lifts, it may be a muscle twitches, it may shake, it may even turn for some of you. If you notice anything, however subtle, just say yes. Good. Milton, if that's you, increase that signal. Now again, he's not going to be able to do this for all of you, but Milton, if you could change something for these people tonight, something they could smile or laugh about and be so much better off, turn that hand toward their face. Turn it. Pull it around like it's being pulled on a wire. Turn that hand toward their face. And I want you to go and find that part of them, Milton. That's right. For some of you, it's going to start to seem funny. It's going to put a smile on your face. The cameraman is now operating one-handed, which is particularly funny. That's right. It's turning to face you. Now, again, think of that thing that you'd love to smile or laugh about and be so much better off. Milton, can you fix this? If you can, nod that hand. Perfect. You may even pull it toward their face, and again, it's going to start to feel good for no good reason at all. You're going to have an unusual sense of well-being. It's going to start to seem funny. It's going to put a smile on the face. This smile may turn into a giggle. When you know this is done, thank you, Milton. You can leave us now. Fine work. Put your hands down, guys. Thanks a lot. Crazy. Crazy.